Good morning, guys. Welcome to Algebra. It's April 15, 2020. Make sure you have your notebook and you're taking notes. Remember, if you need any support, we will be communicating through Google Chat. You could find that within Google Classroom. That link is at the top of the stream. You should, if you're accessing this through a phone or a tablet, you could download the app. It's called Google Chat, and you'll be able to interact with myself and your classmates in there. So let's talk about yesterday. Yesterday, we were talking about expanding expressions. We've been talking about that. So 3x minus 2 times the quantity of 4x minus 2. Right now, this is in, that's right, factored form. And if I want to create an equivalent expression in expanded form, I'm going to multiply. I'm going to use the distributive property. Every part in expression A times every part in expression B would give me the expanded form. The way we do that is we create our expansion boxes. Here we have two terms in A and two terms in B. Remember yesterday we defined those. Those are called binomials. So 3x minus 2, 4x minus 2. I'm just going to multiply out 12x squared minus 6x minus 8x plus 4. These two can be combined because they're like terms. And I'm just going to write it out. I have 12x squared minus 8x minus 6x is minus 14x plus 4. And remember, we write it in order from the highest degree variable to the lowest. That was reviewed from yesterday. So let's take it a little bit further. Let's talk about why expanded form versus factored form. Look at those two, and when's it more of an advantage to use factored form or expanded form when solving equations? So today's focus question is, what is the zero product property? And how do I use it to solve equations? By the end of today, you'll be able to use something called the zero product property to solve equations. So what I want you to do is first this. Start off, take some time, pause the video, figure out if you could solve that equation. What values for x make this equation true? Take a moment, pause, like I said, pause the video and come back. What did you guys get? Some of you might have guessed and checked. Maybe you figured it out. Now, I'm not going to reveal the answer yet. Let's go down to the second one. What values of x make this equation true? So we're looking at this equation, the quantity of x plus 2 times the quantity of x plus 3 equals 0. I'll give you a moment there. What values of x make this equation true? Pause it and figure it out. All right, guys, we're back. So if you looked at it, the second one is usually easier for most people, because if you look at it, I have, let's say this expression is A, and this expression is B, and we're multiplying them together to get 0. So that means to get a product of 0, either A or B have to be 0. It's the only way to get a product of 0. So then if I look at this, how would this be 0? Well, x would be negative 2. How would this be 0? X would be negative 3. So if x equals 2, or, I'm sorry, let me go back. Not 2. if x equals -2 or -3, that would make the equation 0. So, just so you know, the equation, these two equations are equivalent because if you expanded x plus 2 times x plus 3, you would get x squared plus 5x plus 6. So in this form, it's a lot easier if you look at this structure to solve this equation if it is in factored form. So remember, factored form, expanded form. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So this is the zero product property, and we just modeled it and we're exposed to it in the last slide. And it says this: the product of two numbers is 0 if and only if one or both of the numbers is 0. You're probably saying, wow, that's a lot to think about. There's a lot of words there. All it means is this, guys. If you have a product of 0, so a multiplication, you're doing a multiplication problem and you get an answer of 0, one of the factors have to be 0. All right? So let's model one. And I'm going to use the zero product property. Let me just move this over a little bit. Okay. So the first one says the quantity of x minus 11 times x plus 7 equals 0. So take a look at this. There's two parts here. Let me call this part A and this part B. In order to get an answer of 0 or a product of 0, I know either A or B have to be 0. So I'm just going to set up a simple equation. I know either x minus 11 equals 0 or x plus 7 equals 0. And if I just quickly solve this, I mean, you could already see it. If I add 11 on both sides, this is x equals 11. Over here, I subtract 7 on both sides. This is x equals -7. So the solution to this equation is x could equal 11 or x could equal -7. So let's move on to the one below it. Take a look at that one. So we got the quantity of 2x minus 7 times the quantity of y minus 12 equals 0. Take a look at that. And we're just going to do it the same way. It's one value times another value equals 0. So that means we could call this A, 2x minus 7. We could call this B, and they're multiplied together. So either A has to be 0 or B has to be 0. So let's just write out a little equation. 2x minus 7 equals 0. Or y minus 12 equals 0. Add 7 on both sides. We have 2x equals 7. And I'm not done yet. We can then divide by 2. And x equals 7 over 2. That's 3.5. I could write it as 3.5. Honestly, it's okay to write it as an improper fraction. We could just say 7/2. Over here, we add 12 to both sides. And we get y equals 12. So, in this case, our solution is x equals 7/2 and or y equals 12. So before we get into this last one, guys, remember a couple things I want to point out. In order for you to use, remember, this is called the zero product property. And To tell you the truth, you might hear me call it ZPP because that tends to stick with students. Zero product property is ZPP. And in order for that to happen, our expression has to be in factored form because we're talking about a rule that only happens when you're talking about a product. So let me give you, for example, x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0. I cannot use zero product property on this because I'm not multiplying. It's not in factored form. If you look at this expression, it is in expanded form. So I need to make sure, in order to use this property, that my expression is in factored form and it has a product of 0. If that's the case, then I could use this. All right, take a look at this problem. X to the third equals 25x. Now, if you look at it, it doesn't look like you use this zero product property because remember, when you use the zero product property, take a look at this. The expression must be in factored form. The product must equal 0. So if you look at it right now, we don't have either of those two needs are being met right now. But what if I rewrote this? What if I said this? What if I was going to subtract 25x from both sides? Let me just rewrite it. That would mean x to the third minus 25x. 25x minus 25x is 0. Boom. The product is 0. Well, I have something equal to 0. Right now, it's not the product because I'm not multiplying. But what if I did this? What if I kind of was imaginative and really thought about this? What if I, instead of doing the distributive property, I would reverse it? It's actually called factoring, and it's dividing out. If I divided an x out of both of these, take a look. X times something gives me x to the third. That would be x to the second. X times something gives me negative 25x. That would be negative 25. So take a look at this. If I distributed, that would be x times x squared. That would be x to the third. And x times 25 would be negative 25x. These are equivalent, guys. This guy and this guy are equivalent. So the expression is in factored form. And the product is equal to 0. So I could use zero product property. Take a look. This is A, this piece is B, and it equals 0. So that means x can equal 0, and that's already solved, or x squared minus 25 equals 0. And how do we solve that? Let's just add 25 on both sides. And we get x squared equals 25. And you know from when you solved Pythagorean theorem problems, if you want to know what x is and it's squared, you would take the square root of it. This would be x. And the square root of 25 is 5, but it's also negative 5. So we write it like this, plus or minus 5. So our whole solution is this. X could equal 0, or x could equal plus or minus 5. There's actually 3 solutions here. And if we plug them into the original equation, let's go way back up here. If I plugged in 0, it would work. If I plugged in 5, it would work. If I plug in negative 5, it would work. Okay, so remember, with equations, you know if it's correct if you plug it in and it makes it true. All right, so let's just take a look at this last piece here, guys. I want you to work through 1A, 1B, one C, and one D. Pause the video, and then I'll come back with answers. All right, guys, hope you did it. I'm back. If you look at this, did you get, for the first one, x equals 7 or -5? You should have got x equals 7 or -5. For the next one, you should have got x equals 3 or y equals -7. For the next one, this one's interesting. X could equal 0 or -2. And D, notice, now we have this. Let's rewrite this because this one's interesting. We have A times B times C equals 0. A little bit different, but if either A, B, or C is 0, then you're going to have a product of 0. So what we do is we solve each one equal to 0. So X could be -3 or -4 or -5. Because if any of these numbers were the solution, it would make one of these factors 0, and then we'd have a product of 0. And then the final one. Did you get the final one? So the final one was similar to the last slide we did. If you look at that, it is not in factored form, but we can, and it's not equal to 0. So we're going to subtract 9x on each side. Having a little trouble with my stylus, and that's going to be 3x squared minus 9x equals 0. So all right, let's see what we can do there. All right, so remember, we're going to reverse distributive property because we want to get it in factored form. This is called factoring. I hear, actually, and this is, and we'll see how to do this more in the next lesson. I could divide out 3x here, and on the inside I would get x minus 3. 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times minus 3 is -9x. If we solve these, x would equal 0 or +3. We'll do more with these types of problems and this factoring business in the next lesson. The ones up top are the ones I really want you to focus on. Remember, zero product property. Couple things need to happen. So think about it. What is zero product property? I want you to pause the video and write this down in your notebook. Please provide an example. When do you use it? Did you do it? All right. Quickly, let's sum it up. Zero product property. If you have a product of 0, that means one of the numbers or factors you're multiplying by has to be 0. So you use it when an expression is in factored form. I don't want that one. You use it when your expression is in factored form, right? And it's equal to, actually, let's erase this. I don't like this. That was messy. All right, so remember, it is factored form, and your equation has to equal 0. All right, guys, take care of your assignment for today. Google Chat. If you have any questions, we'll be sharing ideas on Google Chat. You guys are the best. Keep it up. I will talk to you tomorrow.